Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to be talking about Algorand's ALGO token and where we believe the price is heading. This is absolutely one not to miss. And if you're an ALGO holder or considering becoming one, this is a video you should absolutely watch the whole way through. We're going to be starting the video off by talking about ALGO on a macro time frame. And what do I mean by a macro time frame? Well, let's dive over to the ALGO chart and show you exactly what it is that we mean by the macro time frame. So a time frame, a bigger time frame, a weekly time frame. And what we're going to be doing in this video, for those of you that are unfamiliar with my work, is introducing how we like to look at the markets through a macro lens. We ultimately like to break the markets down into four distinctive phases. I'm going to throw the schematic up on the screen. Phase one is a basing phase, an accumulation phase. Phase two is an uptrend. Phase 4 or 3, don't get ahead of yourself, all in, is a topping phase or a distribution phase, as Wyckoff would have called it. And of course, phase 4 is a downtrend. Now, this is how we look at the markets on a macro time frame through the lens of phase analysis. We teach it in our Market Mastery course. It's Black Friday tomorrow, so we'll be doing a sale on that. Also, we do workshops and things, or are planning on, in the Patreon. If you're not already a Patreon, if the cryptocurrency market is moving and you're not appreciating from it, the question you've got to ask is, what the hell are you doing? And we think we can help you with that. So do check that link out in the description. But we like to look at the markets through the lens of phase analysis. We like to break the markets down into these four phases. And when you can identify these phases and you have faith in this method actually being a viable one, you can, I believe you can sort of outperform your peers. So this method is very much a continuation of what Wyckoff taught with his Wyckoff cycles. Now, most people only know of accumulation and distribution and the schematics for them. However, there was a middle and an end part to that, in the sense that after accumulation, you get the markup, then you get the distribution, then you get the downtrend. There's four very distinctive phases to a market. There's also the Wall Street cheat sheet that sort of ties in. Really what that's doing is mapping out the kind of phases markets go through from a emotional point of view. Let's now dive back to the Algorand chart, and I want you guys to leave a comment or to say out loud where exactly it is you think Algorand is in, given what we've just shown you. Now, some of you may be skeptical that markets work in this kind of a simplistic fashion, but they truly do. And it's my opinion, when it comes to technical analysis, people overcomplicate it massively. It doesn't need to be that way. The simpler, the better, in my opinion. Certainly you see all these snake oil salesmen trying to push miraculous indicators that have 90+% hit rates. I think technical analysis isn't a silver bullet. What it does is increases your probabilities of being right to perhaps the tune of, if it's good TA, 8 times out of 10, something like that. There's always going to be the 2 times out of the 10 where things don't quite go in your favor. But learning how to deal with that is something beyond the scope of this video. What we really want to focus on is where Algorand is in regards to how markets typically work. And some of you may be a little bit skeptical in regards to actually believing that this plays out. So what I want to do is I want to show you, start off with the macro, and then we'll get into the smaller time frames. And I'll tell you straight off the bat that I think Algorand can 5x, certainly in 2025. And I think that's being unbelievably conservative. But a 5x, I mean, what a sensational return that would be. Remember, nothing I do or say here is financial advice. It's just my own take. You don't have to believe it. If you see merit in what we're saying, that's entirely up to you. But to show you that these four phases work, I want to show you a couple of examples. And these are all examples that we were looking at in phase 1 that ultimately phase 2 then ensued. Now, this is HubSpot. And you can see very clearly your 4 phases playing out here. I believe Algorand is very much in a phase 1. You can see this is a double bottom. That pattern's going to become relevant when we look on the smaller time frames. If we look at the New York Times company, a media company, many of you may not have looked at these charts. You can see once again your 4 phases playing out. Double bottom, very common that you typically base on a big time frame in a number of ways. Maybe an inverse head and shoulders, double bottom, a range, like something like Chainlink or something. We'll look at what Algorand's currently doing today. It gives us further confluence in regards to us being in a phase 1, an accumulative phase, and that phase 2, an uptrend, is still to come. Everybody's over the moon about the sort of price appreciation Algorand's seen, and I'm here to tell you that it's just started what is going to be, I believe, a rather lengthy journey. So this is, of course, New York Times company. Then we've got Palantir. Of course, this is one I've got a lot of Patrons that like Palantir. We were looking at this down here and said, look, potentially got an inverse head and shoulders. It's going to take you significantly higher. We think this is going to double and then some. But for the purpose of this video, we're showing you how the markets move in this kind of phase-like fashion. Again, we think you're very much in sort of phase one for Algorand. And then, of course, Spotify. Some of you that watch my daily market updates will know this is one that we were calling. We had lots of technical targets for it. And again, phase one, phase two typically takes place after. So if we now go back to the Algorand chart, we can comfortably show you exactly where we think Algorand is in regards to how the markets work. We think it's very much in an accumulative phase, which is what Wyckoff would have looked at it as. And ultimately, you're yet to even break out into phase two, which is your uptrend, which is where price action, you get the most bang for your buck in terms of price action. What I now want to do is drop down the time frames and show you that not only is this very typical in regards to market cycles and following it, and you're in this kind of early accumulative stage, which means that there's higher prices to come, in my opinion, or a phase two to come. When we drop down the time frames, we also have a very clear double bottom present. This might actually turn out to be somewhat of an inverse head and shoulders. I could always see this turning out to be a left shoulder. You can see this is your key level here, your resistance level. And I could see this potentially being one big complex head. But the pattern we really want to identify, so if you sort of ignore that left shoulder that we've just drawn for the time being, is of course this double bottom like pattern that we're identifying. And we can actually project a target from this. You take the neckline, or what we're drawing as a neckline, you draw down to the bottom or the base of the double bottom, and you project it forwards. And this potentially is going to see Algorand go from its current price today of 20 cents all the way up to likely around about that $1 mark, which would be a spectacular return in my opinion. And that's very much the path forward that I think Algorand has ahead of it in the next year. Where it goes then, when it's in phase two, you'd have properly and well and truly initiated phase two at this point, is really up for speculation at a later date. You know, we'll see if it sort of interacts with any of these sort of price points created in the prior bear market, that we can then project a further technical pattern to the upside off of. But when we look at it from a big time frame and how markets work, we very much think that this is a phase one and you should be paying attention to it, an accumulative phase that is yet to break out into phase two, which is an uptrend. And we also have a technical pattern in the form of a double bottom that will likely see this all come to fruition. So there's a number of things, we like to use the phrase here on Allincrypto, when it walks, talks and quacks like a duck, it's a duck, that lead us to that conclusion. We also did, and we're one of the few people to identify this falling wedge in a very falling wedge-esque fashion. You've got one impulse here, two impulse, three impulse, and then you break out with momentum. We showed you the Ethereum class example. But there's a number of things that lead me to believe Algorand is going to go significantly higher. And again, when we look at it from a macro time frame, Algorand really hasn't even started its journey yet. And fundamentally, just to make a comment on that, because this has been a very predominantly technically focused video, there's 1,000,001 reasons to be bullish on Algorand. I mean, just the founder alone, Silvio Micali, Turing Award winner, mathematician, a legend when it comes to the cryptocurrency space, a pioneer of things like ZKs, et cetera, or a creator of them. And somebody that ultimately, I think, has his tentacles within the sort of traditional financial realm also. We're certainly very respected in it. We're seeing a lot of, or to stick to Algorand more fundamentally, it's one of the fastest, cheapest, and also energy efficient blockchains that there are on the market. We're already seeing tokenization take place on it, and there's a lot of links to sort of more financial world players. And on top of that, we've got this kind of regulatory shift going on in the United States that is likely going to favor blockchains like Algorand, and Europe's going to have to follow suit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a beautiful picture really that's being painted fundamentally for Algorand. And when we look technically, certainly from a how markets work point of view, We break them down into these 4 phases. We think you're still in the cumulative phase. You've got your uptrend to come, and we've got that smaller technical target in regards to, or technical pattern in regards to double bottom. You're still yet to take that neckline that ultimately is likely going to see that initiation of phase 2, which is the uptrend, where the bulk of the move is likely going to take place. You're really not out of your basement yet. So that's it from me. We've not done an algo video in a little while. I'll be buying quite a bit of algo very soon, and we'll do a longer video on why that is. But what we wanted to do in this one is just update you from a price point of view. Remember, nothing we do or say here is financial advice. It's all just my own opinion. Invest in the crypto space at your own risk. But personally, I see a good time ahead of us for Algorand. And that's just my own take. Let me know yours in the comment section. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one.